Hello YouTube, this is the second live of the day. This live is going to be about building a business in 30 days. So this is day 2. The basic idea is I'm going to be building something from scratch. I started up yesterday with an idea and put together a very basic version, and we're going to be over the next 30 days building it. The challenge is that I'm only allowed to spend 1 hour per day on this particular project. So as tempting as it is, and this happened to me yesterday, because I started to build yesterday, as tempting as it is just to keep building, and if you do any vibe coding, if you do any creation like this, you will feel that urge as well, and you'll find suddenly hours have gone by and you've been, you look outside and it's dark all of a sudden. As tempting as it is, I'm keeping it to 1 hour per day. The reason for this is I want to show that even if you have limited time, even if you have a job, if you have kids, you have responsibilities, if you can carve out an hour a day, and let's say you take it away from watching Netflix or something that doesn't necessarily add to your life, then you can build a business in a short amount of time. So that is the challenge over the next 30 days. I'm going to spend an hour a day. I'm going to build out something and I'm going to try and sell it. Whether or not I sell anything, whether or not there's any revenue, I do not know, and that is fine. This is unplanned. So yesterday I really wanted to get back into it, and I said nope, I'm not going to do it, I'm going to wait. The reason I really wanted to get back into it is that, you remember yesterday, if you were in day 1, we set up the basic framework, we used Claude projects to put together a project plan, and then I took it over to Lovable and it gave me a very basic version. If you are on TikTok, if you come over to YouTube, you'll be able to see my screen and you get a lot more information. There's a lot more context there. The first version did not work. That is fine. It happens quite a lot. Unless you are building something incredibly basic, you are going to run into problems. What happens though is a lot of people will do this with vibe coding and they will bounce off immediately and they will be like, oh, well, it's rubbish. I'm never going to be able to build anything. This is terrible. What's the point? And then they just stop. I'm going to show you today, and we're going to work through this, and it might work and it might not work. We're going to work through how we actually deal with problems and how we get our app into a working place, or we revert to something that will work and then we build from there. We're going to be talking about the frustration, because sometimes this happens with vibe coding. You will hit a bug and you won't be able to work your way around it, or you manage to deal with a bug and it pops something up in another place. These things happen, so we are going to tackle that today. And it's interesting that this happened immediately on day 2, but I think actually quite useful that is what's happened, because this will be an experience you're going to run into with vibe coding. There is no way around it. You are going to hit a wall, and how you deal with that first wall is going to basically predict how successful you will be building software using a vibe coding application. So if you're looking at my screen right now, what you'll see is something went wrong. So let's go back and have a look. So this is my application. It's the basic idea is I'm going to be able to plug in a YouTube video URL. My application is going to pull the information about that video, grab a transcript, and based off that, generate lead magnets. Right now, the first step is it needs to be able to pull information from YouTube. So let's go ahead and put in a YouTube URL here and press generate ideas. I'm doing this in the Lovable interface for now. Oh, something went wrong. So the edge function, that is Superbase, returned a non-200 status code. Try again. And then the common issues are video has no captions or transcript available, video is private or restricted, or invalid YouTube URL format. I'm going to click try again. It won't work, but let's give it a go. Oh, so let's go and press that. Okay, no, so I get exactly the same thing. So we've run into a problem. So there's a couple of ways you can deal with problems. What a lot of people do with vibe coding is they'll just go back to the chat and say, okay, do it better, make it work, make it work this time. Unfortunately, that generally doesn't help. It doesn't help us get out of gridlock. What we need to do, and the first thing we're going to do, is I'm going to basically copy this, what I'm seeing, and give it to Lovable and say, hey, this is what I'm seeing. Can you help me? That's going to be our first step. So I'll copy paste that in. Just there's the error code, and let Lovable have a think about what that could be, and therefore what it could do with it. This may work, this may not work, but there's a number of other things that we can do as well. So thought for 12 seconds. I'll check the logs to see the exact error. Cool, good idea. The issue is clear From the edge function, the OpenAI API key has exceeded its quota. It's unusual. I need to update it with a new key that has sufficient quota. So I'm actually going to go over to my OpenAI. I'm just going to drop down my screen. So I don't think it's exceeded its quota, so that seems made up to me. Remember, we're still using an AI, and AI still make mistakes. So I'm just looking at my API key. So my API key is basically, I'll tell you what, I'll make a new one. An API key is what allows you to connect to a service like ChatGPT or to Claude. It's a string of letters and numbers. Think of it basically like a password, which allows you to connect whatever you're building to a service like ChatGPT. And once you've got that connection, anything that's entered into your app can be sent to ChatGPT along with a prompt, for example. Processing can happen on ChatGPT and then sent back to your application. We use an API key because we rather than the main kind of chatbot, ChatGPT version, because we're going to be giving this to lots of other people to use. So they all need to be able to hook into my ChatGPT account, not using their own ChatGPT accounts. So that's why we're using a key. So it is not over quota. My September budget is $120. And that reset yesterday, so I'm fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to Lovable and say, no, I don't think that's what it is. Oh, wait, hang on a sec. The OpenAI key has exceeded its quota. I need to update it with a new key that has sufficient quota. So what I'm going to do is actually grab that key again. Actually, no, just say it is not over quota. So I'm just going to correct it. Are you sure you are even connected? Tell me the error in the log. So I'm going to push back on Lovable. I'm not just going to accept what it's saying, because this is not a Lovable issue per se. This is just AI. Sometimes AI gets things wrong. And we're going to query it. So vibe coding, a lot of people go into vibe coding, think that they will literally just be able to vibe. They'll be able to sit back with a beer and let it go. No, you are talking to the AI in the same way that if you use ChatGPT or Claude in a more professional way, you need to collaborate with it. It is not about just automating, it's about augmenting. So here we are. I've checked the latest edge function logs to see the current error. Based on the edge function logs, the exact error from OpenAI is you've exceeded your current quota. Interesting. This is a direct response, but it's rejecting. So that is not what I'm seeing in the API key. I wonder if I need to add a new credit card, which is going to be fun to do live on stream. Okay, I'm just going to quickly add some money. And I'm doing this not on the live stream, because as fun as it is exposing my API key and my credit card, etc., we're going to try not to do that. This is one of the risks when... Oh, okay. Well, this is not very exciting. This is an old credit card. That is why. Okay, this is how you can tell this is definitely a live stream. I get somebody comes onto my live streams and doesn't believe that I'm real at times. So this is probably the best indication you have that this is very real. Is me having to do this. Okay, let me quickly add a credit card. So while I'm doing this, I can talk about what an API is. So you are not going to use your general ChatGPT account when you're building applications. You're going to build something called the API. You can access it at platform.openai.com. This is very annoying. This credit card literally expired yesterday on September. I told you this is a new thing that I'm doing, this new stream, so it's going to have warts and all. So the API allows you to connect directly in. It costs a lot less per request, so you're paying like 0.000 something per request, which allows us to serve lots of people. So lots of people, when they think about the cost of ChatGPT, they're thinking of the $20 a month. That's not the one that we use when we are building with ChatGPT or building with any AI. Instead, we think of the cost of sending a message and receiving messages back and forth, and they tend to be very, very low cost. So state, country, boop. Okay, let's try this again. Again, no, this is good because you can tell this is very live, very raw. And I literally need to change my credit card on stream. There we go, payment successful. Let's have a look. So I'm going back to that API key. Part of the reason for this is I tend to use the Anthropic rather than the ChatGPT, but I wanted to use the ChatGPT API for this because it's generally going to be what more people are using. So I'm going to go back to Lovable now and say, all right, okay, try again. I had to change my credit card. I don't know why I'm telling Lovable that, but there we go. Great, now that you've updated your credit card with OpenAI, your quota issue should be resolved. Please try again. Yes, I totally forgot to do that. So I'm going to add a new, let's go for this one. Oh, hey Nate, how you doing? I met Nate for coffee the other day. Analyzing your video. Okay, it hasn't hung up, so it looks like it's doing this. Doing it now. This usually takes 20 to 30 seconds. Boom, there we go. So the video was YouTube's AI Crisis, How to Survive the Breaking Creator Economy by Think Media Podcast. It just happened to be at the top of my YouTube. Solid. Okay, so it's come up with 3 ideas. Again, if you're on the TikTok, I highly recommend going to the YouTube so you can see what I'm seeing. It's basically worked. So your lead magnet ideas are ready, generated from YouTube's AI Crisis, How to Survive the Break-In Creator Economy. Here are 3 custom lead magnets designed to convert your viewers into subscribers. Boom, that's exactly what we want. So first one is going to be a checklist. It's going to be a creator survival checklist, thriving in the AI era. Stay ahead of YouTube's AI-driven changes with this actionable checklist. It guides you through the essential steps for building a resilient creative business, from audience research to monetization. Key elements: identify, blah, 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 plan, schedule. Okay, that's very generic. That's fine because we haven't added any instructions yet about what we actually want this to look like. And then there's a create this lead magnet button. If I click that, I don't think it will work because I haven't built that in Lovable yet, but we can see the UI element, the user interface element. We can see what that will look like. The next one is a quiz. So is your channel AI proof? Take a creator self-assessment. That's a really cool one. And then the last one's going to be a PDF guide, the ultimate guide to growing and monetizing on YouTube. So the basic functionality is working. What has happened is this, well, yesterday I came up with the idea and we decided to build the minimum viability product. The minimum viability version of this is grab a YouTube video, read the transcript, and off that come up with 3 different lead magnet ideas. These lead magnets can then live below that video. So this video right now has 23,000 views. And at the moment, their call to action below is joining Riverside Pro for free. It's not a very specific call to action. It is to do with a different business, in fact. So this is a really not a very strong lead magnet. What they could replace that with is a lead magnet which is, hey, did you love this video? We've put together an assessment so you can assess your channel and work out whether or not this is for you. That's a much stronger lead magnet because there's congruency, there's a connection with what the video is about, and that can sit at the top. That can sit at the top of the video, and it can collect email leads. So somebody's going to click on that after watching the video, and they're going to think, oh yeah, I want to run this analysis for my channel. So they click on it, they fill out the assessment, it gives them an answer, but it collects their email address along the way. So that's what we're creating. What we've just managed to build, and the first step is working, is it has pulled the transcript from YouTube, and it has processed that transcript, and it has turned it into 3 potential lead magnet ideas. It has not built those lead magnets. We've decided we're going to do that later, because we build step by step by step by step by step, making sure something works before we move on to the next step. Let's have a look and see how much that cost. I don't think it will. It probably won't have. Yep, okay. So that cost me less than a cent. Sorry, less than 1 cent to run that analysis. Obviously, I'm going to be adding in more AI processes, so it's going to cost more. But what we need to do is we need to work out how much it's going to cost to run these queries, and then therefore how we are going to price this tool as well. And I talked about this in my live just now, my previous live on the daily news. There's always going to be this kind of 3-body problem between the value we're providing, the cost is it costs us as the creator to provide that value, and the price that we charge to the customer. And we need to find pricing that kind of sits in the middle, which allows us to provide the most amount of value at the lowest cost and to also generate a margin. So we need to still make money from this because this is a business. But the good thing is AI and using the API is very cheap. So just that, if somebody had come on here, put in the URL and generated ideas, it would have cost me less than 1 cent. I could potentially give this away for free. Like right now, I could launch this to all the people on my live and all the people in my newsletter and say, hey, I've created a little tool. It will come up with lead magnet ideas based on a YouTube video. Go ahead and use it, because it's only going to cost me less than 1 cent per person. That's fine. What I could do, if I was being really clever, is I would allow them to put it in. I would create a report which comes at the end, but blur parts of it out. And I'd say, if you want the report, go ahead and give me your email. So I can actually make what I'm creating into a lead magnet generation tool as well. That's getting a bit meta, but that might be something I explore later. So we have the basics in play. The way we got to this, remember, was at the beginning of this live, I was sitting at a screen. It said, no, it's broken. It's not going to work. So I copied everything that I could see on screen and I took it over into Lovable and said, this is the error that I see. Help me fix it. If it was more complex, I'll show you what I would have done. I didn't have to do it, which is good. But if it was more complex, what you can do in Chrome is you right click on your app and then inspect, and then you're going to go to something called console here, and in this area you can see any error messages that come up. And then what you're going to do at that point is you're going to copy paste everything from this area down here, and you take that to Lovable. So that is what problems Chrome is seeing. So sometimes it will spit out the problems on the screen. Sometimes you need to go into Chrome. If you're not seeing it on TikTok, you need to hop over onto YouTube. Unfortunately, I can't share my screen on TikTok until I buy a PC. It's a bit weird. I have an old MacBook over there though that I might repurpose into a PC and then add even more to this desk and this setup, and it's on the list. But YouTube is going to be the best place to see this. Sorry about that, TikTok. Cool. So what I'm now going to do, now that we have that very, very, very basic functionality in place, is I'm going to tell Lovable, hey, remember we had a plan, we had a setup, because that's what we gave it at the beginning. I'm going to just remind it of that. I'm going to say, hey, what's next on the plan, literally. So I will say, at the beginning of this project, I gave you an action plan. Check the plan, where we are now, and what's next. What I'm going to do, this is just a safety thing, you don't have to do this, but I will say, confirm with me first, and then we'll begin. Do not start work until I confirm. So that's just, well, for a couple of reasons. One, because I'm doing it live, I want to be able to talk about the plan. Oh, something just broke in the app. That's interesting. That's interesting. We'll fix that in a minute. But right now, Lovable is thinking. So I need to review the original action plan, but don't have access to my earlier conversation in my current context. So yes, you do. So interestingly, it's saying I don't have it. What I'm going to do, just for simplicity, is paste that plan back in. We always need to, with any AI, with Lovable, with ChatGPT, with Claude, etc., we need to keep kind of making the AI check on what it knows, because otherwise it will continue to act for us without necessarily following a plan. So previously I'd given it a plan. Lovable is now saying, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have any record of that plan. So I've given it the plan again. This is why I checked, because if you work with a tool for a long time, it will start to forget things, because it's leaving the context window. So all I've done is, before I've moved on to the next step, is said, okay, let's go back to the plan. Let's reset. What are we doing next? So looking at the original action plan and the current state of your project, here's where we are. Completed. Phase 1 MVP. Boom. Done. Missing. Critical for MVP completion is the real YouTube transcript extraction. Currently using demo transcript. Okay. So we need to check on that. Current status, we're about 90% done with phase 1 MVP. The app works end to end, but is using mock data instead of real YouTube transcripts. I'm not sure about that, but so I'm actually going to push back on that. Are you sure the URL I gave was about YouTube's AI crisis? So I'm challenging it. And lead magnet ideas generated seem to be related. However, it might have just made them up. It might have just hallucinated. Were they hallucinated or from the transcript? So I'm just checking on its work, because again, we are not going to make the mistake of just letting the vibe coding tool do anything. We are going to work with it. So we're going to deal with that first, and then next priority options: complete MVP, minimum viability product, move to phase 2. Okay, so we'll do this first. Unfortunately, if you are watching this on the live stream on YouTube, you can see how bad a typer I am. Thankfully, it doesn't matter. The AIs are smart enough to be able to deal with my terrible typing. So if you can't spell, if you're dyslexic, doesn't matter. Also, as I mentioned previously, you could do this via voice. You can set up a voice interface and talk to your computer and do it there. I'm not doing that because it gets really complicated, because I'm talking to Stream and the computer won't know when I'm talking to it, and it just gets a bit complicated. You're absolutely right to question this. Let me check the edge function code to see exactly what's happening with the transcript extraction. You caught me. Looking at the edge function code, here's exactly what happened. It extracted the video. So this is why we have to push back on the AI. Video extraction, it grabbed this ID, grabbed that title. So it mocked up a transcript. Cool. That's probably why the lead magnets looked very generic, which I was going to come back to, but we're going to deal with now. So the lead magnets seem relevant because OpenAI got the real video title plus a generic transcript about content creation strategies, and then it made educated guesses. So all it had was the title, and based on that, it made some stuff up. So this is not the real MVP. The system is essentially generating lead magnets based on video titles. Should I implement real YouTube transcript extraction? Yes. So we're going to see how it does this. We gave it some ideas in the initial project plan, but let's see how Lovable tackles it. Okay, so it's putting together a function. You can dig into the code and have a look at what it's doing. The reason we're using Lovable, though, is because we don't need to do that. Lovable is not the only vibe coding tool. And then there are other kind of tools that sit between vibe coding and real. Sorry, that's very... I shouldn't say that because it's not correct either. And between traditional development, things like Cursor, which allow you to dip a toe into both. But we're going to be using Lovable because it's the most accessible and anyone can use it. This is not sponsored, but you can go on lovable.dev and try it out, and you do not need to create an account. You do not need a credit card. So I kind of recommend just going and doing it, because lots of people always ask me, like, how do I get into vibe coding? It's like, just go and try it. There's a very low barrier to entry. a very low friction point. So done. I've implemented real YouTube transcript extraction. Sounds good, but we need to test it. So it's going to fetch the actual video page HTML, extracts YouTube's embedded captions data, if there is any, downloads the real transcripts XML, and passes the spoken language content, handles both manual and auto-generated contents. Now try the same URL again. So it's saying it's done. We are not going to believe it. So every time an AI, a vibe coding tool says, I'm done, we have to test it. There's a tendency or a desire to be like, okay, cool, let's move on to the next thing. You have to make sure it's working, because like any or most AIs, it will just glaze you. It will tell you this is working. So we have to check it. So in its defense, it has said, please go ahead and test it. So I'm going to stick that in, analyzing your video. Ooh, something went wrong. So what I'm going to do is, as I did last time, I'm going to paste the error code into the lovable chat panel. And now it has the context of, oh, I've just tried to add this new function, which is going to extract the transcript. So it now knows that this error code is connected to that. So it's going ahead and thinking. I see the issue. The transcript extraction is failing because my regex, oh dear, pattern isn't finding the captions data in the YouTube HTML. Let me fix this with a more robust approach and add debugging. Now, it might manage to do it. I'm saying oh dear because this seems like a problem. This might be complicated, which is fine because we're going to be working through how we deal with these kind of problems, because when you are vibe coding, it's going to happen. You're going to hit these issues. I might be speaking out of school here. It might fix it for me. But we may need to say, okay, let's take a step back and think about how we're getting this transcript, because at the moment I've said I want the transcript from the YouTube. It's trying to do it in one way. There may be other ways to get it. I've completely rewritten the transcript extraction with a much more robust approach that tries 3 different methods. Okay, so direct YouTube transcript API, auto-generated captions, and HTML passing the feedback. The new system has a much better error handling and detailed logging, so that means when it goes wrong, at least I'll know why. Try the same YouTube URL again. It should now successfully extract. So let's give it a go. Oops, I am not 100% convinced, only because regex stuff is tricky and it went wrong. Yeah, so it failed again. Let's add more logging, please. Apparently it's added some, but I want to make sure that when something goes wrong, we know exactly what it is, which it will generally add for you, but not always. So I'll add extensive logging throughout the transcript extraction function to see exactly where it's failing. So logging is important when you're building anything, because by default a computer program or piece of software will just fail, and it won't necessarily tell you why it's failed, and if you don't know why it's failed, you can't fix it. So logging just gives us, at the end of a failure, it will give us a few lines saying this is the reason why I failed, and then once we have that, we can feed it back into the AI, or if you're a programmer, you can use that to diagnose the issue. So let me add okay, it's adding logging to all my various different approaches. This is actually good for me because there's if you've ever vibe coded, you'll know this. While you're waiting for it to work, it's very tempting to like pick up your phone or start scrolling the internet. But at least I can talk to the live chat as well instead. So it's a very good use of the time instead of getting distracted. Here we go. Perfect. I've added comprehensive logging throughout. Cool. Now try it again, and it's gonna give me extensive logging. So it will still fail, but that's fine. So something went wrong. Okay, it failed. Check the logs. Hopefully, if you're watching this, you're not seeing this as frustrating, because some people do when they vibe code, but you're seeing it as it's a process of solving problems, and you still need to do that. And this is where knowing how to code, knowing how to program is really useful, because when you hit these kind of things, if you have been programming and coding for years, you'll be able to much more easily move through these with or without artificial intelligence. Whereas if you've never touched code before, it's definitely doable, but there's going to be a higher chance that you just throw your hands up and you're like, I'm not dealing with this anymore. So I'm hoping that by me at least showing you how to work through these kind of issues, you get an idea of how you can do so with your project as well. So the generic error isn't showing the detailed logs I added. Let me add a simpler, more direct approach with better error reporting. I'll create a minimal transcript extraction that focuses on just one method first. So what it's done is it's created 3 different methods to try and get the transcript from YouTube. That may be overkill. So what we might need to do, if this continues to be an issue, is basically tell it to take a step back and say, all right, stop trying to fix this. Let's go back to the original problem. The original problem is we need to extract a transcript from YouTube. Let's do some research. Let's think about the best way to do that. What I might actually do is, while Lovable is doing that, I'm going to hop over to my project and I'm going to set up that research. So I'm going to say to Claude, and so I'm doing this outside of Lovable, I've got the MVP built, but it is failing to pull transcript from YouTube. Can you give me some methods, their pros and cons for pulling not necessarily pulling because it doesn't necessarily exist, so generating transcripts from YouTube videos. So the reason I'm doing it in Claude is because it doesn't have the preconceptions of the Lovable project. The Lovable project that I've just been using, it's starting to solve a problem in a certain way. So if I start to talk about fixes, it's going to automatically refer to what it's already been trying to do, and that might narrow its scope so it can't actually think outside the box. So what I've done is I've come back to Claude and basically said, this is what we're doing. Can you help me find some potential solutions? So it's gone ahead and found, wow, quite a few. It's gone with, it's made 5. So legacy, sorry, web scraping, not a good idea. Third-party APIs, easiest but costly, so it might be something I can look at. YouTube inner tube API is the most current. Use YouTube's internal inner tube API. Most reliable method in 2025. No API required. More complex implementation. Could potentially be blocked. Okay. And then there's a Node.js package called YouTube Transcript npm. Unofficial but popular. And then the official API. So first let's see what's happening with Lovable, and then we can maybe pull that stuff in. So it's created a few different ways, and what's it saying? Okay, let's try that again. So don't be afraid to go outside of Lovable to look for potential solutions. Okay, something's gone wrong again. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take all of this stuff from Claude. Not all of it. I'm going to grab the first 3 look okay for now, and I'm going to come over to Lovable and say, okay, we're getting stuck. You don't have to sigh at Claude, at Lovable. It will understand when you're disappointed. Here are some methods I've researched using Claude. Do I want it to? Let's explore using these. Drop that in. Plus, can you tell me what we are currently using? I think we're using the API. Is it the same as the first method? And if so, let's focus on the second and third. So we're pulling in information from another AI. You can also use information sources outside of AI. So I could go to Stack Overflow, for example. Generally, the AI has all of that already, and it's easier to access through natural language, but that's still going to be an option for you. So we're using none of these three methods. So the current method we're using is a direct call. So we're not using the data API. That makes sense because I didn't set that up. So we're attempting a direct transcript call, which is failing. So that's probably why. You're right. Let's try method 2 and 3. There's a challenge. Method 2 uses an npm package for Node.js. Okay, we're not going to use that. So what it's trying to do is it's trying to implement method 2, but change the yeah, I don't think this is a good idea. So I'm going to actually stop it and say skip method 2. In that case, let's try method 1 and 3. Again, apologies for anyone on TikTok right now. I will work out how to share my screen, although it will be very, 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 very small on the TikTok screen. So the best place to see what I'm seeing is over on YouTube. So I'll implement both the official API and the... so what we need to do is I need to create a YouTube API. I might already have one, but... so I need another API key. So what do I need? I think I have one from a long time ago, but let's have a look. Boo, boo, boo. I'm taking my screen off again just because it will show my API keys. It's going to be a pain to make. Here we go. So I think I have some already. If you don't know how to make an API key, which is fair, especially if you've never done anything like this before, what you want to do is you can go to Claude, you can go to ChatGPT and say, hey, Lovable is asking me to create a YouTube API key or whatever it is. What is that? How do I do it? Etc. etc. Like you go ahead and you I'm going to restrict that to YouTube, and it will give you a step by step way to do that. Let's see if that works. So I just very quickly made a new key. So you can ask Lovable when it says something like add the YouTube official API v3 key, and if you have no idea what that is, then you just say to Lovable, I don't know what that means. Please can you provide step by step instructions? Don't be afraid. The good thing about AIs is they are infinitely patient. So when you don't know something, you just ask. Okay, I'm not sure if that's the right API key, but we'll see what happens. Let me pull back over to here actually. Charlie says, what do you think of OpenAI offering a 300k salary for content strategy role? So they are beginning their marketing, which they haven't really had to do before. So I got last week on Friday, they reached out to me to become a influencer content creator for them. Interestingly, the same day as Anthropic did, and Microsoft reached out on Monday. So I think all of the big companies, they are actually starting to look at marketing, whereas before a lot of their acquisition was based on, word of mouth, which was basically free, based on product, people using it and then like sharing it with other people. I think they're starting to move into marketing and sales as other acquisition channels. So obviously if they can get that working, it's worth an awful lot more than 300k. I haven't seen the actual job description, but if that's a head of content marketing, that seems, content strategy, that seems perfectly reasonable. It's implemented. Okay, let's see if this works. It says that the API key worked, but we'll have a look. Something went wrong. wrong. So unfortunately, this isn't just a lovable case, but with a lot of vibe coding tools, you still need to feed back and forward between what you're seeing and what's going on. Some more agentic systems will do this better, but generally we kind of need to still be looking to make sure the functionality is working. So I need to check the edge function to see what's happening with the API methods I just implemented. So it still requires me as a human operator to say, it's not working, keep going. This is good in a way, because when you do use a more agentic system that just goes off and does its own thing, you need to be really careful about, well, one, what it's doing. They can do a lot of damage and make a huge mess, and two, the budget limitations as well. Because if you just leave an AI doing its own thing and you don't give it any strict guidelines about how much it will spend, it will spend a lot of money. Which is fine if you've set your guidelines, you've set it up properly, but you could come back at the end of the day with a couple of $100 in bills and it's made a complete and utter mess. I've added a debug login to track which version is running. Try the same thing again. Let's see what happens. Okay, try it again. Still failed. But now there's a log in place, so it should be able to pick up what actually happened there. But yeah, when you are vibe coding like this, it's useful to have something else to do. I don't know, learn the yo-yo, because you are going to be sitting and waiting. But this is still much faster than if you're doing it by hand, to be fair, unless you are a coder. This is not for people who are hardcore coders, and that is fine. This is for the rest of us. Again, if you've just joined this live, or it's rewriting someone. If you just joined this live, or this is new to you, I'm building in 30 days a new piece of software. I'm going to launch it to market. So I'll probably only spend a week or two actually building the product, and then spend the rest of the time marketing it and building in the marketing channels, because nowadays distribution is increasingly more important than building, because it is so easy to build, and we can build something pretty good very quickly. It no longer takes months and months. We can have something ready in a few days, but I am limiting myself to 1 hour per day in order to show that this is very possible for everybody. And I was at Lovable last week over in Stockholm and met with the winners of the shipped competition, so about 10 people who had won the shipped competition, and a whole bunch of them were not coders from before. They were people who had run businesses or people who had ideas, and they were able to use vibe coding to actually build a product or build a service on top of what they've been doing before, based on their previous domain knowledge, rather than being coders first and foremost. I think that's the most exciting thing about vibe coding, is it allows existing entrepreneurs, existing content creators, existing business people to create software. Is it going to be, the highest level production quality stuff to be scaled out over multiple businesses and enterprises? No, but it allows you to get something in play very, very quickly, and then you can build on that. Because too many people spend too much time and money building up products that nobody actually wants. Instead, we can build very quickly, we can get it launched, we can get distribution, we can get it marketed, see what it is that people react to, what they like, what they don't like, and then iterate based on that. Completely rewrote the function with clean emoji logged methods. I don't love that. I'm not sure what that is. So even though we're running into same error, even though we're running into frustrating loops like this, I'll probably be able to punch through this in, I don't know, 10 minutes or so. It's not very exciting to watch on a live, mind you, but it won't take that long to get fixed. What I might do is go ahead and see this in my preview and see if we're getting any issues in the inspector, because that was something I talked about would be useful earlier. Okay, there we go. So in my console, I now have this. So I'm going to copy the console and bring that over. When this is done, this is in my Chrome console, FYI. Oh, okay. It's telling me to use a different URL, so let's try that. No. And the secondary URL you gave me isn't working either. So I'm giving it more feedback here. I'm giving it feedback from what I'm seeing in the console itself on Chrome. So that lets me see any errors that have kind of filtered to the surface. That's in addition to its error logging. So, okay, so now it knows the function isn't even running properly. Let me create a minimal test version to isolate the issue. I've only got 15 minutes left today, because again, my promise is to only work on this for 1 hour per day, which is going to kill me for the rest of the day that I can't fix this. So I'm hoping I can punch through this in the next few minutes. I've created a basic test version that runs mock data. Try any YouTube URL. This will tell us if the function itself is working or if it's a deployment issue. So I'm going to go ahead again, put that in. Okay, cool. So test video function is working. So I see test video function is working, and I'm going to go ahead and kind of paste in what I'm seeing, because again, the vibe coding tools don't see what we see, or not in the same way, which can be very frustrating sometimes. You can actually take, when it comes to things like UI and UX, like let's say a button looks wrong to you and it's hard to describe in language why it looks wrong, you can take screenshots and you can give them and say, hey, this is what I'm seeing, it looks bad, and that will help it to see what you're seeing. I'm sure over time this will become better and they'll be able to see the preview just as well as we do, if not better. But right now you do need to do this relaying back and forward unless you're using something more agentic, but again there are risks involved there with it going off and doing its own thing. I don't mean risks as in Terminator Uprising, I mean risks as in they will run up a large bill and not necessarily get things right. So perfect, the function is working. Now let me add back the transcript extraction step by step, starting with the simplest approach. Perfect. Now the function has proper transcription extraction with YouTube Data API v3, blah blah blah. Again, we need to check that it's not gassing me up, so we need to test this. It telling me that it's working is not the same as it working, so we need to actually go and check. So I'm going to grab this video again from Think Media. Let's see if it can generate. Okay, so we are back. We're back. We've moved forward one step and maybe back, let's say 1.5 steps. So we're back to the point where it is generating a leader magnet based off a YouTube video, but it is using mock data, which means the transcript is not being pulled through. That's probably because this video doesn't have a transcript. So let's do this. So TED Talk on AI. As it said, I don't know, Eric Schmidt. This probably has a transcript. But we need our tool to be able to get a transcript when it doesn't exist. Or maybe we need to rethink. Maybe there was a fundamental problem here. But let's, what am I doing? There we go. Let's see if this works with a TED Talk first. So this is a TED Talk, generate ideas. Okay, that did not work either. So mock data, no transcript available. So I've tried the TED Talk and other URLs. It says no transcript available. Check logs. I don't think we're going to be able to punch through this in the next few minutes, unfortunately. But I think still useful to see how we work with vibe coding tools in order to go through this. There are other options available to me. I'm not using them at the moment, but I could roll back and then kind of start fresh again, because there's always a risk that the more we make these edits and changes, it's starting to kind of add in lots of code and it starts to get a bit messy. There's a couple of ways to roll back. So can you see these blue boxes? They have restore buttons. So basically, if I click on one of these, I can then restore back to that checkpoint. That works okay. The one problem with that is it doesn't restore my database. So my database is being hosted in Superbase. So I can restore what's being seen in Lovable, but it's not going to change what's in the back end. So you can end up with those two conflicting, and that creates a huge mess. Other ways to restore, I haven't hooked it up yet, and I should have done this. This should be the first thing I do, but connecting it to GitHub GitHub is, how to describe GitHub? It's like cloud backups, but not really. It allows you to create checkpoints and roll back to previous versions, but it's more advanced than that. So it's not just like version 1, version 2, version 3. You can also, and the reason why it exists is you can allow multiple programmers, multiple developers to work on a version and then pull it all together in one place. But if it's just you, and if you're just making changes bit by bit by bit, then it's basically like cloud backups. I'm sure there's a coder in the chat who's about to yell at me. Okay. So it's asking me to do it again. So if this continues and it continues to make the same problem, same issues again and again and again, then then you need to kind of stop. You need to stop the AI and say, no, this isn't working. We need to go back. They will not do that themselves. The only one that does actually is Gemini. So if you keep hitting problems with Gemini almost has like an existential crisis where it's like, oh my god, I'm failing you so much, I feel so ashamed, etc. It will full on have a meltdown, and you know by the time it gets to that point, it will still keep trying, but you kind of know by the time that it's got there that this isn't going to work and it's time for a rollback and go clean. Okay, so you should see detailed information. So I'm not seeing that, so I'm seeing the same mock data. So where should I see that? Because it says you should see detailed information about the API key availability, caption list request and response, caption download request and response, and VTT, that's subtitles, content passing. Yeah, so we are running into a loop of problems. So at this point I have a Thomas Anderson says no moral qualms over how much resources AI uses. Guess not. Face purple crying. It depends what you're using it for. So I think there's as with any technology, there's always pushback. Right now, we don't really know water usage is very low. That's kind of a red herring, but it does use electricity. The inference costs, so me using AI on a daily basis like this, is very low. It doesn't cost much electricity. It's nothing compared to scrolling on TikTok, watching me on YouTube. I'm using more energy right now streaming on YouTube than I am with these AI requests, like vastly. And compared to streaming on Netflix, for example, uses a huge amount of energy. So the inference costs, the use of AI on a daily basis, doesn't use that much electricity. Very low, especially compared to all our activities. So we need to take them into account if we're going to throw stones, basically. That said, the training costs of the models, a lot of electricity is used there. That's why companies like Microsoft are looking to build nuclear power stations, because they need a lot of electricity. We don't know how much electricity is being used to train these models. That is still something that they don't really tell us. That is the concern. However, I think global IT uses about 1.5% of the energy, electricity on Earth, 1.5%, which is not nothing, but it's very small compared to most industries. So if we are going to criticize IT and AI, we need to put it in the context of all the other industries that are also using electricity, and a lot more electricity. So home appliances, streaming services, etc. What we need to keep an eye on is how much that's going to increase. And we do not know that accurately because of the cost of training models is not transparent. I wish we had more information there, but we need to put all of this in the context of our other energy use and our other water use, which is phenomenal. So AI is, I understand there are concerns, but when people bring up the resource, the water and the electricity, generally it's not in good faith. Generally it is as a way to attack AI. I get it, but we need to know all of the numbers, basically. And I would argue we can do a lot more valuable work with AI than we do if we are just watching TikTok, for example, which uses more energy If we are creating something like a business, if we're creating lesson plans, whatever with AI, that's a more valuable use of electricity, but also human energy, I would argue. That's a judgment call though, entirely. So let's check the actual Superbase edge functions. They should appear in the Superbase dashboard. Okay, so that's why. So it wasn't telling me what was going on. So I'm going over to Superbase. Probably in the logs, huh? So I don't know where to look, so I need to ask him. So you should see logs like function started. Oh, it told me exactly where to go. So I was about to ask where should I look, but there we go. It has given me the exact. Here we go. Shutdown error stack. So 403 API has not been used in project, or it is disabled. Okay, so we finally got it. So I'm going to actually kill that for a second. Okay, this is probably something I need to work on offline because it is API key related. I'm sorry about that, but that looks like I've now found the problem. The problem is the API key itself is well, I need to make sure that it's allowed to be used in this particular application. So specifically API data API version 3 has not been used in project blah 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 before, or it is disabled. To enable it by visiting. So I'm hitting a like a not privacy, an access issue. So I've set up this API key. The API key is going to go between my application that I'm building, my YouTube lead generator creator, and YouTube, but it's being blocked by YouTube because I haven't given it the right permissions. That's because I tried to do it fast live on stream. So I'm going to do that offline, and then tomorrow for the stream up, that is going to be working, and I'm going to be able to hopefully push through this problem. So what did we get done today? We managed to get the calls to YouTube. So we've connected YouTube and the application. So that is working now, and it is creating a blank version of the lead magnets. So that is working. We're good to go. What is not working is when there is no captions available, we need to be able to pull captions from YouTube. And to do that, we need the YouTube data API version 3. I set up an API key, but I did it live on stream and I didn't want to expose things, so I did it in a rush. That led to some errors. We looped in a circle. We did find the eventual cause of the error. The reason Lovable didn't have insight into what it was is because it's sitting in Superbase. So Superbase is the backend database. So I had to go back and find that. Superbase actually pointed me in the right direction. Sorry, Lovable pointed me in the right direction, but it took us a little while to get there. So we have now identified what the issue is. There were a couple of ways that I dealt with problems. The first, very basic, is copy and pasting the error message and saying, hey, what's going on here? The second was looking in the console of Chrome. So you access that by right-clicking on any Chrome page, then go to inspect and then to the console tab, and you can see any error messages that are being thrown up. And then we are also looking at logging. So logging specifically is when something goes wrong. Unless we set up logging, a piece of software won't tell us exactly what went wrong. It would just crash out and it would sit there quietly waiting for our next instruction. So we set up logging in order to give us information so we know why it broke, and therefore we can go back to the AI and say, hey, this is the problem. So we looked at a couple of ways to deal with errors. We will continue to run into errors. I think this is the most important thing. Vibe coding is amazing and it can do some really big things, but you will hit an error. Might happen your first day, it might happen a week later, it doesn't really matter. You are going to hit a wall at some point. And the main takeaway I hope you get from today, I know it's frustrating watching these errors, but the main takeaway is you can work through these things, and there is a set of steps you can take, ones I just told you, or you can roll back and kind of start fresh. You can also go to external AIs like I did with Claude, where I went outside to ask, hey, what the hell's going on? What can we do? Are there better ways to do this in order to get a wider picture? And basically, by being patient, working out what's going wrong and slowly, methodically picking through a problem, you will get a breakthrough. You will be able to get through. I now know what I need to do. I'm not going to do it live on stream because I'm running out of time and it's an API key issue, but I know what to do. So hopefully by tomorrow that will be connected and we'll be able to pull the transcripts from YouTube. So we are 2 hours in. The first hour was basically working out what it is I want to build, and I decided I want to build a tool that will extract I'll go and find popular YouTube videos and I can create lead magnets based on them. So I'm going to be using it for my own YouTube, but I can potentially sell this to people who run YouTube channels and they can create customized lead magnets for their YouTube channel. That's what we did yesterday, come up with the idea, and we built the basic interface. And today we focused on, and didn't really succeed, but we focused on trying to connect up the pieces. But I think we're on the edge of getting there. So I also highly recommend grabbing a copy of Lovable. Grabbing a copy, that's very old-fashioned. Going to lovable.dev and you can play around with this tool yourself. So come up with an idea that's very simple. What I'm doing is not that simple because I have to connect to lots of different things. If you can create something that doesn't require those connections, you'll be in a much better place. And just play around with it. You do not need an account, you do not need a credit card. You can literally just generate something for fun right now. And if you do want to sign up, I think it starts at $20 a month, which is, for what it is, very, very cost effective. Cool. I will continue tomorrow building this new business from scratch in 30 days, and let's see if we can generate some revenue before the end of the month. Oh, again, I have a live webinar tonight as well. Today's lots of lives. A live webinar tonight at 6 p.m. You can find the link in the bio and sign up. I'm going to be talking about how to sell workshops to businesses. It's a very lucrative thing to do right now, and probably one of the quickest ways to monetize any expertise that you have in artificial intelligence. And the key thing is combining your expertise in a particular domain with your expertise in artificial intelligence, and then going and giving workshops. So the most I've ever charged is $4,000 for 1 hour, so about £3,500 giving a workshop. My students charge $1,000, $1,500 per hour to go and teach businesses how to do this, because it is a very, very, very high demand request right now, so you can make good money. So I'm going to be talking about how you get into that, how to get comfortable with public speaking, what kind of level of AI knowledge do you need, why are companies willing to pay so much, etc., etc., all at 6 p.m. tonight. If you cannot make it tonight, then I'm going to be doing it as well on Thursday 6 p.m. or Tuesday 6 p.m. London time. Awesome. I will be back tomorrow with a fixed API key, and we'll hopefully be able to start adding some features. But I think this was quite a useful one. That's the title of today's has been error fixing, error resolving, and hopefully that's the end of our big errors. It won't be. There'll be lots more. Thanks, guys.